ICE officers operating in Minneapolis have shot and killed a U.S. citizen. And while that alone is disturbing, the video footage of the shooting is irrefutably cold-blooded murder. And what's even more, another insane layer to this, is the White House's reaction. Now, before you tune off and go, oh, this is some liberal lunatic, you may notice, for those of you that are new to the channel, behind me are a large number of military awards. That's because I served in Afghanistan as a platoon leader of a military police platoon. So believe it or not, I have a unique background in both law enforcement and even combat operations with real world experience to back it up. I also have 7 years in the Department of Homeland Security's Inspector General's office doing essentially internal affairs investigations. So I actually know what I'm talking about. And seeing this stuff, it is deeply disturbing to me. So let me break down the fundamental problems I have with this shooting. And then we're going to compare the video that we see to what the administration claims has happened. And we're going to see if we can do so and keep our sanity. So let's break this down. Again, the video is becoming increasingly hard to find unedited, but we're going to do a couple of things. So let's start with this one. This is probably one of the earliest segments of the confrontation that I can find. It's filmed from a passing car. The person shot, Alex Peretti, and I'm deliberately choosing words so that you are less likely to be biased. This is something that a relatively impartial investigator would do. The shooter and shooting victim or man who was shot is what you might say in a report. So this is the man who is shot in the video. His name is Alex Peretti. He's a registered nurse at the Veterans Affairs Hospital in Minneapolis. And for context, he has a legal permit, a concealed carry permit. So he has a firearm on his person right now that is legal in the United States, legal in the state of Minnesota. So let's take a look. You can see here, he appears to be holding a cell phone and speaking with an individual wearing a multicam plate carrier, likely an ICE officer. You can see that this passing motorist observes that there is some kind of ICE operation taking place on the opposite side of the street. But this agent, another officer, here's the problem also. The fact that all of these guys are wearing civilian clothes continues to bother me because ICE has officers and Border Patrol has agents. And the distinction is not meaningless. They have very different legal authorities. Again, neither of them involve enforcement actions against U.S. citizens, certainly, and no law enforcement officer of the government has the authority to simply arrest or detain citizens merely for filming. That's protected by the First Amendment, which ensures freedom of the press. So you can see these agents get out. They seem to be speaking to Mr. Peretti, and they put a hand in his chest and begin to push him back towards the sidewalk. Again, this may be ICE officers. Again, I'm going to refer to them as ICE officers. I'm not actually sure if they're ICE or Border Patrol because of the lack of identification, but they push him back towards the sidewalk, possibly stating, hey, you can't be in the street. This is interfering with an operation. And he complies. You see him walking backwards onto the sidewalk, following their, gentle shove, we'll say. Now, let's cut to the next video I could see. Here is a slow motion video covering more of the events. So you can see now Peretti has been pushed back to the sidewalk. The object in his hand, very clearly a phone. And you can see here is another protester who is accompanying Peretti. Peretti appears to be trying to hold her steady on the sidewalk due to the slipperiness. Now, here the officer shoves a person. Peretti steps in between him and a woman, and you can see the officer discharges his what we in the military called OC spray, mace. Now, I want to add an important piece of context here. Being sprayed with OC spray or pepper spray or mace, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to use OC spray because that's the term, the technical term we used in the military. And it is an extremely disorienting experience. It is effectively blinding. It is extremely painful. And it is required, in fact, to carry it in most law enforcement agencies, including in the Department of Defense, within the military police corps, you have to get sprayed with it in order to carry it. So you understand both what you are doing to people, but also if the discharge, the irritant, comes back at you, you have to understand the cognitive effects of it so that you aren't crippled by it. And when we did the training, again, you can, if you are prepared and focused, lock in, you can remain oriented enough to protect yourself, protect your equipment, continue to operate. But you have to do so with a certain level of training. You have to get some coursework on what you'll experience. For most people who are pepper sprayed, in order to continue to operate, they actually have to peel their eyes open physically with their hand in order to continue to see. You still have just your tears in overdrive. What I want you guys to understand is every subsequent video you see, Alex is unbelievably disoriented and effectively blinded, right? And in extreme pain, right? So you can see here, Alex is turning away. He's not a threat. Again, the only thing we've observed Alex doing so far is filming with his phone and complying with an officer's directions to get back. So the officer sprays him, actually swats his hand down and continues to spray him in his face, even as he turns away. Pepper spray is not really meant for this. It's not a compliance tool. It is a less lethal tool to ensure, to give officers a opportunity to use a tool that isn't lethal force to protect themselves. But protect themselves from what? That is unclear. Clearly, Alex has turned away, and the officer continues to actually shove his mace into Alex's face and spray it. At this point, Alex is blind and in extreme pain. He collapses or falls, appears to slip on the ice, and the ICE agents begin to swarm on Alex. Now, this individual in the gray coat, I think it's worth noting, this individual is identified later as an ICE agent. But again, in the footage that we see, he has almost none of it. It really is very difficult to see who this person is. Now, here is some stabilized video of subsequent parts of the confrontation. So Alex is on the ground. His shirt has been hiked up, and it reveals that there is a holstered firearm here. Now, again, the Second Amendment and repeated case law going up to the Supreme Court says that it's completely authorized. But what's important is that Alex's hands are on the ground. He is on his knees. The weapon is holstered. And we observed that even as he was being pepper sprayed, he was holding his phone and he was turning his hand away, never going for his waistband. So again, let's continue to look here. So what do we just observe? You observe that one agent actually doing the appropriate thing. When you observe a gun and you're detaining a suspect, you, as the officer or agent, officer, get control of the firearm immediately. So they get positive control of the weapon. It's holstered. It's remaining holstered. The agent has it. The other agent draws his firearm. Now, so far, neither of these interactions are inappropriate, right? Securing a weapon, telling other agents there's a weapon present, and drawing your firearm to say, hey, we already moved through pepper spray. Now I'm going to draw my firearm, as that's kind of the next level up. And it's not required, by the way, guys. You don't have to pepper spray someone before using applying lethal force. You, as an officer, you always have the right to protect yourself and the lives of others. But that is the thing I want you to keep in mind here. This man is on the ground. The firearm is secured. And then observe, this is key. The probably officer in the gray coat has secured the weapon. The weapon is secured. It has been pulled out from Alex. Alex's hands never touch the weapon because he is on the ground. He is blind. He's on the ground. He's disoriented, and he is completely unarmed. And after the firearm has been removed from Alex, he is shot. The firearm is secured. Observe the firearm here. Right? The agent draws his weapon. This is the thing to take away. Look, the weapon is secured. This agent observes Alex's weapon being removed. He observes Alex's weapon being removed from him. The agent is looking right at the gun right? He watches another agent secure the firearm, and Alex is unarmed. He's on the ground. He's pepper sprayed and disoriented. We observe, look, there he is. There it is, right? We're talking about a non-trivial amount of time has passed, right? And then Alex's weapon is gone. The agent in full view of the weapon. It's not like the agent doesn't know where the weapon is. The weapon has been removed from Alex. Points his gun at the back of Alex's head and pulls the trigger. Alex staggers briefly. A second shot's fired. And Alex is killed. YouTube's going to demonetize this. Fuck you, YouTube. Fuck you. Understand that at no point did you see that man attempt to go for a firearm. At no point did the firearm leave the holster under the control of anyone other than an officer or agent, whoever they were, right? And the agent that fired the weapon knew that Alex was disarmed. I want you to understand that if, as a soldier in Afghanistan, in a literal war zone, if I disarm an enemy combatant, not a civilian, not a protester, an enemy combatant, a literal Taliban member, and I get them on their hands and knees, and I get control of the weapon, and I remove it from them, and then I shoot them, I am going to fucking jail because I am a war criminal, right? And that is under the law of war, of combat, okay? If I had killed Afghan civilians in this manner, I think my own soldiers would have arrested me. This is straight murder. There is no defense of this. I have none. None. Right? Perhaps a good lawyer could get this guy down to manslaughter to say, I didn't know the guy in the gray coat. I thought maybe he was a protester. But even if you thought the guy in the gray coat was a protester, why are you firing your gun at the guy who's been disarmed? You should fire your weapon, discharge your service weapon at the person who just is now armed. This is insane. But now I want you to understand, I want you to listen to the official statement by the Secretary of Homeland Security on what they claim has happened here.
This individual showed up to impede a law enforcement operation at
a... Okay. Not true. Not true. We just, you and I just observed that person complying with that officer's directions as he pushed them back to the other side of the street. He was on the other side of the street of the operation, right? The officers pepper sprayed him after he appeared to step in front of him to film. But again, the officer was the one who initiated contact. Alex acquiesced, was pushed back on the street. This is absolutely false. He absolutely complied with the officer's directions.
Assaulted our officer.
Again, we observed that Alex did not assault the officer. The officer pepper sprayed Alex repeatedly.
They responded according to their training.
Their training does not tell them. I can't speak. I can only speak for the fact that I attended the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Glencoe, Georgia, the same training center where a large portion of ICE agents are trained, and that I covered some, as an inspector, handled a lot of use of force policies for ICE. I have not been to ICE's academy, so I can't say exactly what they are trained on. And that academy has also been revised heavily since I've left the federal government, so I can't speak to that. But what I can say is that there is no law enforcement agency I have ever heard of in this country, nor is there any military unit in the United States military that tells you that after you have disarmed someone, it is appropriate to shoot them once they no longer pose a threat to you. That is just not the case. Not when you have numbers, not when they are on the ground. Some agencies may tell you, hey, if you're a 96-pound female cop and it's a 300-pound bodybuilder and he's on top of you throwing fists, yeah, you can use lethal force to protect yourself. Not to a downed, controlled, incapacitated subject who has been disarmed.
and took action to defend the officer's life and those of the public around him. And I don't know of any peaceful protester that shows up with a gun and ammunition rather than a sign.
Okay, this is, again, not true at all. One, because the official government stance is that everyone who was armed on January 6th was a peaceful protester. So she herself isn't even consistent with her lies. But also, the Second Amendment absolutely allows him to do so. He was absolutely allowed to do that under Minnesota law. And even those January 6th protesters, when they were outside the Capitol, they were completely within their rights to be armed. Some of them had some problems with DC law and magazine capacity and stuff, but the general principle was that they were fine. It wasn't until they, trespassed into the Capitol building and until they assaulted cops that they became criminals. Right. So again, she's unable to keep her own lies consistent.
This is a violent riot when you have someone showing up with...
Did you observe violence from Alex? Did you observe violence from Alex? At any point, did Alex commit any violence against those officers?
Weapons and are using them to assault law enforcement.
Okay. Did Alex at any point use the firearm to assault a law enforcement officer? Did he ever draw it? And we watched the video. The only person who touched Alex's weapon in that entire interaction was the officer. Not once. Not even after he'd been pepper sprayed. This is insane. This is an insane level of... Actually, it is... The only thing more insane is the president's actual statement. He says, the gunman's gun loaded and ready to go. What was that all about? One, Alex is not a gunman because he didn't draw the gun. A gunman has to use the gun. What is it all about? It is about the Second Amendment, something that, again, President Trump has been a staunch advocate for. Also worth noting is that President Trump himself has repeatedly said that there are many violent agitators at these protests. And so it would make sense that if you live in a country with a Second Amendment, and the president himself has said there's a potential for violent agitators to infiltrate these peaceful protests, then perhaps Alex was taking a firearm to defend himself from the violence that the literal president has said goes on there. Then he asks, where are the local police? The local police cannot disarm someone who is standing on the sidewalk filming. They don't have that authority. They cannot simply delete the Second Amendment when it bothers them. Not local cops, not ICE, nobody. Why weren't they allowed to protect ICE officers? From what? What action did Alex take that threatened the ICE officers? Nothing. He complied with everything they appeared to ask him to do. Right? The mayor and governor called them off. I don't know what this is about. Many of these police were not allowed to do their job, and ICE had to protect themselves. To date, 0 ICE agents have been killed in Minneapolis, but many residents of Minneapolis have been killed by ICE agents conducting operations there. ICE and Border Patrol. Don't get your stuff right. ICE officers, Border Patrol agents. Even I screw it up because I'm pretty worked up about this. And then Trump proceeds to engage in a classic Soviet disinformation move. Whataboutism. He says, yeah, but what about Ilhan Omar, a congressman who, I don't know, who he alleges made a bunch of money while in Congress. Guys, if making money in Congress is a crime, then all of Congress should be in jail. And that's the suggestion. That's a suggestion and a recommendation. Then he asks where the tens of billions of dollars have been stolen from the great state of Minnesota. It's being recovered. The funds are being recovered now because all of the individuals, all of whom were U.S. citizens, that perpetrated the fraud are facing charges. So again, he claims billions of dollars missing. Again, it's not missing. They were located. Those individuals are on trial. Illegal criminals allowed to infiltrate the state through Democrats' open border policy. This is just lies. I don't know what else to tell you. Again, like some of them, I'm sure, some of the people ICE has obtained, mostly coming out of Minnesota jails, are people with final orders of removal. But most stats say about 50% of these people are individuals with pending asylum claims, with valid visas, who have no criminal history. These things are just ridiculous. And then here's the killer. Trump actually outs himself he posts the weapon, which he claims was loaded. It's been unloaded. But what's fascinating to me is that this allows us to identify the silver grip, lets us identify completely that that is the exact weapon that the ICE agent, or excuse me, the ICE officer or Border Patrol agent got their hands on. So we know that we have video that Alex was unarmed when he was shot in the back of the head, or in the back, right? And then he adds, if they were still there, you would see something far worse than you are witnessing today. This is untrue because, well, in 2024, Minneapolis was just a regular cold place. So this is absurd. Again, I showed you the video evidence of this absurdity. I showed you in contrast with the statements by the government. This was an execution that and by the way, guys, you can look. The Renee Good thing, I was incredibly not generous. I acknowledge that while the law enforcement officers made some mistakes there, they ultimately were in a situation where they had a split second to decide if they were in lethal danger or not. And this is not that case. And I suspect these agents, instead of rethinking their tactics and decision making, asking themselves, hey, maybe these protesters, as much as I don't like them, still have First Amendment rights. They doubled down on their aggression because they were told by the vice president they have absolute immunity, because the agent that committed, or the ICE officer that committed the shooting of Renee Good didn't even face an investigation. The DOJ didn't even do an investigation to clear him. They're like, no investigation required, which implies that this is seen as routine and even commendable operations, which is just insane. I don't even know what to make of this. This is, how can you even claim to uphold the Constitution? I mean, this guy was doing constitutionally protected activities, backing away from law enforcement when they said he was like in the way of their operation, filming them and engaging in protected speech. And then he gets pepper sprayed and then disarmed and then executed. It's insane. I don't know. Hit subscribe. Don't trust the government. I don't know what else to tell you.